Hello and welcome to the Aussie Football Passport, your one-stop pod for updates on your favourite Aussie men and women who are playing their club careers abroad. I'm your host Alex, and this week there is plenty to cover. The Socceroos took on Colombia. We've got news on both the junior Matildas and junior Socceroos, a change in the Matildas squad for their upcoming friendlies against New Zealand, a Socceroo wins silverware, and plenty more. Let's wait no longer and get straight into the headlines. Let's kick it off this week for the headlines with Kevin Muscat, who's won the Chinese League title for a second year in a row. Well done, Muskie. His side, Shanghai Port, won the title with a 1-0 win over Dalian Yingbo. Anything less than victory in that final game would have meant his side would have fallen short. However, that was not to be the case, and back-to-back titles have gone Muskie's way. So the question is Europe calling for Muskie? He has unfinished business there with a failed spell at Sint-Truiden back in 2020. So time will tell, of course. He pulled out of the race to be the new Rangers manager as well. So no doubt there'll be another opportunity for Muskie coming up in a matter of time. Speaking of Aussie coaches based abroad, Graham Arnold, he guided Iraq to victory over the UAE. 2-1 in the second leg, or 3-2 on aggregate, taking them a step closer to the World Cup next year. Iraq will now face the winner of Bolivia and Suriname in the Intercontinental Playoffs to be held in the next international window in March, and we wish Graham Arnold and Iraq all the best. Now to women's coaches, Tanya Oxtoby. She was announced as the new Newcastle United women's coach, leaving her role as the Northern Ireland women's coach. Newcastle United are in the second division in English women's football. So no doubt Tanya will be aiming for promotion with Newcastle, and all the best to them for the rest of their season. Now to junior Matildas news. They will play against Thailand in an under-16s women's national team friendly match on the 28th of November at Gosford. So it will be the curtain raiser for the Matildas game against New Zealand. So it's fantastic news to see our junior Matildas get a bit of exposure before the senior Matildas squad play against New Zealand. The match will also be broadcast live on Paramount Plus for those who have a Paramount Plus subscription. The fixture will follow on from a earlier clash between the two sides, which will be held on the 25th of November at Wanderers Football Park in Sydney. And it will form part of a broader initiative to strengthen regional ties and promote youth development in women's football. So great news, as I said earlier there, for our junior Matildas. All right, now the PFA have announced that Matildas and London City Lionesses player Alana Kennedy has joined the PFA Executive Committee. So Kennedy joins fellow Matildas Claire Hunt, Tamika Yallop, and Dylan Holmes on the committee, and we congratulate Alana for that new role off the field. Now, in terms of that Matildas squad change that we mentioned at the start of the pod, Brighton and Hove Albion player Charlize Rule has been called up as the replacement for Charli Grant. The call-up marks Rule's first time with the squad since her senior debut in December 2023. And Charlize has been playing quite well for Brighton of late and will be a like-for-like replacement for Charli Grant. Charlize Rule predominantly plays as a right back. Of course, Charli Grant plays left and right back. Charlize Rule, if you remember from last week's pod, she actually filled in at centre back. So she will bring her own utility value to the Matildas squad. And we do hope to see her get some minutes in these upcoming games against New Zealand. All right, back to the men's game and the Joeys, the under-17 men's side kicked off their Asian Cup qualification campaign with a hard-fought 1-0 victory over host nation Jordan. The goal itself was based on a quick exchange of passes, which saw the ball land nicely at the feet of Max Court, who, of course, is part of the West Apia Leichhardt side. Of course, they did go down in a penalty shootout, loss to Marconi Stallions, for those that have been watching the Australian Championship, which I hope you have been, because it has been fantastic. Anyway, back to Max Court. The forward unleashed a well-placed shot from outside the box, which was beyond the reach of the Jordanian goalkeeper, and led to that 1-0 scoreline. The Joey's next game is against Bhutan on Thursday morning, Australian time. Just for context, Jordan beat Bhutan 5-0 in the first game. So good luck to the Joeys in that one. It is looking likely that the Socceroos will be in pot 2 for the World Cup next year. FIFA are yet to confirm it, but the hints are there in that all the teams playing off for their spots in the final expanded 48-team tournament will be put into pot 4 by the looks of it. So in theory, that should give Australia a better opportunity for a better draw, which is something they just don't get at FIFA World Cups, as we well know if you look down history lane. However, that's being the case with pot 4, there are the potential for some really dangerous sides qualifying, depending on if you see Italy is still a threat. And I mean, they still have to get past Northern Ireland. Anyway, the draw will take place in the early hours of Saturday, the 6th of December, Australian time, and we will bring you that draw in the podcast that follows the 6th of December. Now, Football Australia has announced that the FIFA Series 2026, which will act as a critical preparation for the Socceroos FIFA World Cup campaign, will be hosted down under in the March international window. The 2-game 4-team series will act as that final hit out on home soil before the Socceroos depart for Northern America. And it, of course, is the last chance for the home crowd to get behind Australia. So we will keep you updated on that one. It sounds quite interesting. I think there will be a few of these FIFA series going on around the world from what it looks like for teams that have already qualified for the World Cup. Hopefully we are able to attract some quality opposition to see what the Socceroos can do. Obviously, it has been a bit of a lean run, as we're about to get into, because now the Socceroos lost again, which makes it 3 straight losses for Tony Popovic's side. This time it was a 3-0 loss to Colombia. The goals for Colombia came from James Rodriguez, Luis Diaz, and Jefferson Lerma. The Colombians just overran Australia towards the end of the game. And the first goal came in the 76th minute via a controversial penalty that had Popper, Jackson Irvine, and Miloš Degenek all livid at the time of the penalty award and in their post-match interviews. Diaz and Lerma's goals came right at the end as our lads, well, I think it's fair to say they capitulated. So harsh lesson for them. And the scoreline really didn't reflect the resilient defence that was on show before the penalty went in. And the second goal was a bit of a goalkeeping error from Paul Itzo, it's probably fair to say. I think the key concern from the November friendlies and, maybe since Popper has taken over is that genuine lack of creativity and the lack of a plan B. When the Socceroos go behind, there's a real concern because there's just no creativity whatsoever. And it just looks like there's no switch to be flicked with their attacking aspect of their game, which is just a real worry, particularly when we have to chase a game, which, let's be honest, going into a World Cup, there is going to be a point where the boys are going to have to chase a game. And at the moment, it's falling squarely on the shoulders of Riley McGree, who's only just back from injury. And to pin all of our hopes on Riley would be a bit of a mistake, I feel, because he is very injury prone at the moment. And, Popper is going to have to limit his minutes, you would imagine. Of course, there's plenty of time between now and next June when the World Cup kicks off. So let's see if Popper does start to alter his plans. Of course, he's only got 2 more friendlies in that March window to have a look at some players with that creative profile. That rounds out our Socceroos analysis. And let's round out the headlines with some injury news. Of course, we mentioned this earlier. Charli Grant is out for this FIFA Women's International window. The defender is medically withdrawn from the Matildas squad. She suffered a knee injury at training for Tottenham Hotspur. So she will stay back at her club and continue her rehab, and hopefully that means she will be back soon. Just a quick reminder that that first Matildas game is on Friday night, with the second game of the series being played on Tuesday night. Now, a quick update on Denny Juric. He was on the bench for his side, Wisla Plock, in their 1-1 draw with Górnik Zabrze in the Polish league. So that's good news for Denny in what should have been a much better week for him. However, injury took its toll on him. All right, that is it for the headlines. Let's move on to the weekly wrap in just a second. All right, weekly wrap time, and you will notice it is a bit of a shorter part to this segment with our ladies. Of course, a lot of the domestic seasons have finished in Northern America and the Northern Hemisphere, namely in Scandinavia. However, we've still got plenty of news to bring you from Europe. Let's start in England, where Arsenal came from behind to defeat Real Madrid 2-1. Steph Catley and Kyra Cooney-Cross started for Arsenal, with Steph playing the full game and Kyra playing 89 minutes, whilst Caitlin Ford was a second-half substitute playing 28 minutes. Claire Wheeler started and played the full game for Everton in their 3-1 win over Newcastle in League Cup action. The win meant Everton topped their group and progressed to the quarter-finals. Now, of course, the League Cup in women's football was divided into pools, and the top teams progressed to the next stage, with some other teams joining them later on, which we will mention who they are later on. Now, let's move on to the London City Lionesses, who overcame Ipswich 2-0. Alana Kennedy started for the Lionesses and played the full game in midfield. Now, speaking of midfielders, Emily Van Egmond, she started for Leicester City before being withdrawn in the second half of their 3-0 loss to Crystal Palace, which means they do not progress to the quarterfinals. Claire Hunt started and played the full match for Tottenham in their 1-0 win over Bristol City. They will progress to the quarterfinals. Arsenal and Chelsea will enter the competition in the quarters. All right, now let's head to France, where Tegan Micah, she didn't play in the Champions League, but she did play on the weekend. She started in goal, played the full game, and kept another clean sheet, which I think makes it 2 from 2 in league matches for Tegan, for her club side Lyon, in their 5-0 thrashing of Strasbourg. Now, to round out the women's club action in Italy, AS Roma defeated Como 1-0 in a top-of-the-table clash that sees Roma go 5 points clear at the top heading into this current international break. Winona Heatley was not in the matchday squad for Roma, whilst Alex Chidiak played 15 minutes as a second-half substitute for Como. Jessica Nash and Jacinta Galabadaracci both started and played the full game for Sassuolo in their 2-2 draw with Milan. Jacinta had 3 shots and provided an assist in a promising performance for her, and hopefully the sign of more things to come and more minutes for Jacinta. Now let's head over to men's action, and let's start in England and Wales in the Championship, where Lewis Miller scored his first goal for Blackburn Rovers as they edged past Preston North End in the Northern Derby 2-1. He started and played the full game. Well done to Lewis, considering a big week where he jetted all over North America and then back to Northern England for that one. Nestri Irankunda was subbed on after 35 minutes for Watford in their 3-2 win over Derby County. Callum Elder played a full game for Derby. Riley McGree came on after 62 minutes in Middlesbrough's 1-1 draw with Oxford United. Sam Sivura came on at halftime for the team, and they have just announced a new manager. So hopefully that means a bit of an increase in minutes on the field for both Riley and Sam for Middlesbrough. Cameron Burgess played a full game for Swansea City as they lost 3-0 to Bristol City. And keeping the theme going, Swansea City also just announced a new manager. So let's hope that does not make any changes to Cameron Burgess's playing time. Now to Portsmouth, where Hayden Matthews made the bench but did not get on the field in their 3-1 victory over Millwall. However, in positive news, Adrian Segacic started and played 61 minutes in that game. So good to see Sega back. And of course, he just did a nice little interview with Simon Hill, which you can catch on YouTube or Football's 360's website. And well worth checking out. He does talk about his ambitions to play for the Socceroos. So I hope Tony Popovich was watching that one. Now to League One action, where Joe Gauci was in goal for Port Vale with his side going down 1-0 to Plymouth Argyle. He played the full game. Surprise, surprise, of course, being a goalkeeper, they rarely get substituted. Alex Robertson was subbed on in the 58th minute for Cardiff City in their 3-1 win against Northampton Town. Rafael Borges Rodriguez played all of Wigan Athletics' 2-1 win against Wimbledon, and Tyrese Francois played 75 minutes for Wigan in midfield. So good to see Tyrese back on the pitch. He has missed quite a bit of football so far this season. Now let's head north to Scotland, where Martin Boyle played 71 minutes for Hibernian as they beat Dundee FC 2-0. Jack Iredale was a rock at the back in his full game for Hibs, making 6 tackles and helped contribute to that clean sheet by playing the full game. Now to their crosstown rivals Hearts, where Cameron Devlin played a full game and wore the captain's armband. However, they went down 1-0 to Aberdeen. Nicholas Milanovic was subbed on in the 84th minute for Aberdeen, whilst Nicholas Suman was on the bench and Kasuni Yengi was not in the squad. Apostolos Stamatolopoulos made an instant impact off the bench for Motherwell, scoring 5 minutes after coming on in their game against Kilmarnock. He played 28 minutes in his side's 3-1 win. Meanwhile, Johnny Katrumbis played the full game at right back, and Oscar Priestman was a late substitute, getting a couple of minutes to close out the win for Motherwell. Ryan Strain returned to the Dundee United team, coming on at halftime in their 3-0 loss to Falkirk. Fellow Aussie Zach Sapsford played 63 minutes for Dundee United. Ryan McGowan returned to the pitch for Livingston, his first minutes since September when he got that nasty infection. He played from the hour mark of Livingston's controversial 2-1 loss to Rangers. Teti Yengi scored the goal for Livy and had a genuine penalty shout waved away by both the on-field referee and VAR. Yengi's shot struck the arm of a Rangers defender, but due to the proximity of that defender, it was not given as a penalty. Does anyone know the handball rule anymore? Please feel free to get in contact because I would absolutely love to know. Anyway, rounding out the action in Scotland, Keanu Bacchus was taken off in stoppage time of St Mirren's 1-0 loss to Celtic. Now let's head to Germany, where Jackson Irvine made his first start of the season for St. Pauli, playing 64 minutes of their 1-0 loss to Union Berlin. Connor Metcalf came on after 73 minutes for his side. To Spain, where Matty Ryan was the goalkeeper for Levante in their 1-0 loss to Valencia. He started and played the full game. Alamabil played all of Castellon's 3-1 win over Andorra. Yes, Andorra do play in the Spanish second division, even though they are technically a country. Anyway, Fran Karasic was on the Hajduk Split's bench for their heavy 5-0 loss to Rijeka. His teammate Anthony Kalik was a late substitute, getting 7 minutes in that one. Now to the Netherlands, where Aaron Hustic added another assist to his Heracles account for the season, playing a full game as his side beat Go Ahead Eagles. Yes, that is an actual team name. I am not pulling your leg. You're more than welcome to Google it. Yes, so Heracles beat Go Ahead Eagles 4-2. He now has 6 assists for the season, which is equal second in the league. He's keeping good company with PSV duo Ivan Perisic and Joey Veerman, also on the same number of assists. It is also rumoured that Adelaide United's technical director Ernest Faber is about to take over as the coach for the rest of the season. Krusic's form has coincided with interim coach Henry Cruzen taking over, so it will be interesting to see if it continues with the potential new appointment of the head coach. Now, rounding out the action in the Netherlands, Max Ballard played 80 minutes for NAEC Breda as they lost 1-0 to PSV Eindhoven. Now to Austria, where Marco Tilio came on at halftime for Rapid Wien as they lost 2-1 to Grazer AK, who, of course, did not have Jacob Italiano on the pitch. He remains sidelined with that calf injury. Noah Botic was a late substitute, getting 7 minutes for his side Austria Wien in their 3-2 win over Blau-Weiss Linz. Now to Denmark, where Randers drew 0-0 with Odense in match 16 of the league. A trio of Aussies all started this one. Polito kept another clean sheet in goal, playing the full game. Mo Toure also played the full game, whilst his brother Musa played 64 minutes. Now heading north to Norway, where Gianni Stensnes came on in the 88th minute as Viking edged out Fredrikstad 1-0. Nicholas D'Agostino is currently out injured, as we mentioned in last week's podcast. Still no timeline on his return from injury. In more positive news for Viking, though, they are 1 point clear at the top of the Norwegian League heading into the final match day, which is this weekend coming. So we will let you know if Viking wrap up the title or not. Now to round out the men's club action this week in Czechia or Czech Republic, Garan Quol played 76 minutes in his first start for Sparta Prague in a 2-1 win against Mlada Boleslav. So congratulations to Garan. All right, that is it for the weekly wrap. Next, we have our players of the week, and we'll wrap up this week's episode. All right, it is Players of the Week time, and let's start with our Women's Player of the Week. It is Ellie Carpenter, who scored in Chelsea's 1-1 draw with Barcelona. Well worth checking this goal out because it's an absolute beauty. It was a stunning solo strike from Carpenter, as we've come to see in green and gold, marauding down that right flank, coming inside into the box and firing a powerful right-footed shot across the goalkeeper, who had no chance of saving that one. So good to see Ellie taking some of that goal-scoring form into clubland, but let's hope she also brings it with her on this current international break. She started and played the full game. Sam Kerr was unavailable for Chelsea as she continues to have her minutes managed, as her coach Sonia Bonpastor has mentioned in her press conference post-game. Now to our men's player of the week. Look, there were a couple of goal scorers we could have given it to, but considering his contribution and the fact that this man has won silverware, his side's first bit of silverware in Japan, it's Mitch Duke. He picked up an assist in his 65 minutes on the pitch for Makita Zelvia in their 3-1 cup win over Vissel Kobe. They claimed the Emperor's Cup, their first in the club's existence. Of course, Makita Zelvia were founded 36 years ago. So congratulations to Mitchell Duke and his teammates at Makita there. Fantastic stuff to round out the show with. All right, well, that is it for another week of the Aussie Football Passport. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for interacting with the show, the likes, the comments, the ratings. Really appreciate it. Couldn't ask for a more brilliant fan base. Thank you so much. I'm hoping to have a few updates for you over the next couple of weeks on the show with some bits on the side. And don't worry, I haven't forgot about doing some bonus episodes that will also come up in due course. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.